Next up is Ashley Wells. Thank you. Ashley Wells earned a BA in both English and Women's Studies from Fresno State and is graduating this spring with her MFA in Creative Nonfiction. She writes very short bios and would like you to please welcome her to the stage. Also, she has hair and teeth, dresses in black often, and smiles and rides horses. Bio. Please welcome Ashley Wells.
Thanks, Rusty. I knew you'd be here to fill in.
Yeah, and that's all I'm good for.
Least amount of work. So thank you for that. So I'm just going to read a little bit from an essay called Discovering Instinct. So all you need to know is that I am on my way to Arizona with a friend and our horses, Joe and Treasure. As we sped along the highway, the words came easily and the radio remained silent. We fell in with the flow of big rigs and cars and discussed everything from barn gossip to our mothers, relationships with men, and even spirituality. In the side mirror, I watched Joe poke his nose through the bars, assessing his place, inhaling the new smells of the road as Treasure stood contentedly behind him. While I watched the horses, Chris described her struggle with her mother, the ways her mother pushed and tried to control her, and the words seemed to move with the rhythm and hum of the tires, and she never takes her kind blue eyes off of the road. She spoke unwaveringly with a brand of confidence that comes with age, a sureness I admired. The way she spoke of her mother and being taken advantage of reminded me of my ex-boyfriend, John, of the things I'd accepted in our 5 years together that I shouldn't have. I told her about seeing a counselor to deal with what the counselor called boundary problems with my ex-boyfriend, how I struggled to set and keep them. I remember taking a trip with John and his family for Thanksgiving. We sat sipping sake in the small lobby of the Japanese-inspired hotel his mother had booked for us to stay at, and the light felt soft and comfortable. Sitting in a small nook, everything felt intimate despite the buzz of other guests socializing. John's mother leaned forward as she spoke. So Ashley, how did you get to all those horse shows? Your dad didn't mind taking you all over the place. We'd been discussing the horse competitions of my childhood and teen years, the countless Saturdays spent at ranches and fairgrounds, all day in the heat and sun, returning home caked in dirt and sweat. Oh, my mom took me to almost all of them. The ones she couldn't, my aunt and grandma did, I said, careful to hide any surprise or criticism at her assumption that handling a large animal and driving a truck and trailer had to be done by my father. Oh, that must be where you get it from, she said, looking satisfied as she leaned back into her chair, crossing her arms as if she had solved some great mystery, as if everything made sense now. And I guess in some ways she had. For years I had been aligned with my father due to our looks, emotional reserve and sturdiness, an assumption that I shared too. But I've come to understand that I am, in deep and complicated ways, my mother's daughter, formed out of a coven of sisters and mothers who taught me through the tracings of our lives the value of companionship with other women, and who birthed in me an abiding interest in horses, leading me to develop friendships with a couple of women much older than myself, horse-centered relationships I cherish and that have irrevocably altered my path as a horsewoman. And I've come to understand that my relationships with other horsewomen are significant with regard to my relationship with horses in nature. While I'm unsure of the nuances, it is there, propelling the attraction, something sparkling and meaningful in the camaraderie with other women, with horses at the center. I've experienced the ways we gain a sense of strength through that camaraderie and through our horses, through the gentle yet sure guidance we are learning in practicing natural horsemanship. And as a woman existing in the world, I've felt versions of that domination, that claustrophobic oppression pressing against me, controlling my space, that horses must feel when all of their options are taken away. Covering all of those miles with our horses, two women covering them together, Chris and I were giddy with the power we felt charged and pulsating through the truck, our strength in doing this alone. We savored our independence, our ability to leave our homes for the wideness of the desert, the freedom to wander with our horses. Not even the seedy truck drivers leering at us as we passed could ruin it, although they came close. Growing up, I always looked forward to driving near the trucks, to pumping my arms wildly and the bellowing honks that usually followed. Now that I'm an adult, though, the road has felt slightly more sinister, as I've encountered problems with the truck drivers the last few times I've driven out of state with another woman. I've heard the stories, the unfair generalizations, and resist believing them. But each time Chris and I drew near a truck and found ourselves parallel to the compact steel cab carrying the driver, I stared out my window and caught another gaze that, despite over a decade of being catcalled, unnerved me and made me feel dirty. Made me feel as if the powerful space Chris and I created together could be interrupted by a mere look. Stopping for snacks in the bathroom, we pulled into the bumpy dirt lot near the gas station, beside a neat row of big rigs. I ignored the man who whinnied at us between filthy cupped hands, checked on Treasure and Joe, and walked into the gas station. After stocking up on snacks, guilty pleasure food for the road, I noticed a small girl standing near the trailer, looking up at the horses inside. Mesmerized, her mother's calls from the gas pump remain unacknowledged. Chris asked if she would like to pet the horses, and the girl nodded yes, smiling shyly. The little girl ran her tiny fingers up and down Joe's flat forehead, felt the velvety smoothness of his muzzle. She seemed stunned for a moment, like I had been my first time feeling the surprising tenderness of a horse, before returning to her mother's car, leaving a light trail of dust in her wake. Chris handed me the keys, saying, "It's pretty straight from this point forward, just desert. You'll be fine." I'd never hauled a trailer before and immediately imagined the trailer overturning, leaving a mess of delicate legs jumbled and twisted together, mauled horse bodies sprawled on the side of the road amongst a heap of metal. Not only was I hauling my own horse, but Chris's, adding to the pressure, raising the stakes. But I buried the nervousness, knowing I'd need to do it at some point, climbed into the driver's seat and began adjusting the mirrors. As I pressed my foot to the gas pedal, creeping over the potholes and dips in the lot, the weight of the trailer and two horses became more real to me, something more tangible, something I could actually feel. The grape orchards of the Central Valley gave way to empty spaces, golden and sprawling, spattered with the occasional patch of delicate violet wildflowers, not yet burned away by the desert sun. I felt charmed driving down the long desert highway, lined with rocks and cacti, apatio bushes with their spindly branches and bright red flowers, sprawled and stretched across the blue like fingers pointing, directing us onward. Wide mountains spread before us, sprinkled with gray boulders. All of that nothingness felt peaceful and beautiful, and brought with it a sense of ease in its sturdiness. Sometimes it felt like the backdrop of a movie, especially while we passed through seemingly abandoned towns with the random cacti near boarded-up businesses and stores, a scattering of small apartment buildings. I imagined a gunfight in the middle of the empty streets, or some wayward wanderer smoking a cigarette against the side of one of the empty stores, gray smoke twirling around greasy hair, matted with sweat from the dry desert heat. As we passed through, I watched a teenage girl wearing cutoff denim shorts and a pink t-shirt stand alone in the middle of an empty field, flying a brightly colored kite in the shape of a butterfly.